Welcome to The Plant Report, a radio show that educates about the green world one plant at a time. The Plant Report is a new educational resource about plants, herbal medicine, ethnobotany, and the human-plant relationship. Listen to our podcast, read our blog, watch our videos, and learn from experts and the plants. The Plant Report is a project of Sustainable World Radio and is hosted by Jill Cloutier. Thanks for listening to The Plant Report because every plant has a story. My guest today is Byron Joel, and Byron is going to be telling us about Arracacia, also known as Peruvian Parsnip. So good, I guess, afternoon, morning. Hi, Byron. Thanks for joining me on The Plant Report.
How'd you do? Yeah, it's morning here.
And I'm so glad you could come onto the podcast and talk about this interesting plant. And I just want to let people know that I have a vast library of books about plants, and only one book, I think out of maybe 8 that I looked through, had this plant in it. So is this a fairly rare plant, the Arracacia?
No, it's not rare. It's hard to come by examples of it outside of Latin America. But if you count the amount that it's cultivated there, it's anything but rare. It's like a major staple food crop.
I have to increase my library.
Well, no, I'm the same. I've got a massive kind of botanical library, and I think the only book that I have it mentioned in is Eric Tonesmeyer's Perennial Vegetables book, and that's where I first learned of it.
Yeah, so tell us more about this plant. So maybe give us the Latin name and tell us a bit about its history, where it's from.
Well, so yeah, Arracacia is the common name in Spanish. They pronounce it with a fair bit more flair than I'm capable of with my Australian drawl, but Arracacia is close enough. It is, I have trouble pronouncing this myself, Arracacia&nbsp is the Latin name. It's a member of the Apiaceae family, which is your parsley, fennel, coriander, dill, carrot, all those kind of umbelliferous flowering plants. They used to be called umbelliferaceae because of their umbels or umbrella-like flowers, those classic, if you ever seen a fennel flower or a carrot flower, that classic umbel shape. It's from Peru, the Peruvian highlands, I believe. So it's one of those tropical highland plants, which is, you never know which way it's going to go with those guys. They can be extremely sensitive and touchy, and they don't want to live anywhere except their tropical highland, very, very specific kind of microclimate. Or you can push the edge a fair bit, like other crops like tamarillo and I think quinoa, pepino. These are all tropical highland plants. But yeah, it's primarily used as a root crop because it grows these beautiful, big, starchy roots that look and even taste a fair bit like parsnip, but they're really delicious. I've got it growing in the yard now.
So you can eat the roots or the tubers?
Is it tuber? Yeah, I think it's a tuber. Well, raw, it is, like a crunchy, parsnippy carrot, slightly sweet, parsnip's got a little something to it. It's not just a sweetness, a kind of nuttiness. It's like that. I'd say it's like a cross between parsnip and chestnut.
Interesting. And is this a perennial plant that people would put in the ground and then it would live on for quite a while?
Yes, it is. It's you put it in the ground as, we can either grow it from seed, which is a little trickier to do, or you take divisions of the crown, much like you would say a rhubarb or an asparagus plant. You plant that up in the ground, and it usually takes about 18 months. So it's like 1.5 years for it to produce a really nice crop of roots underground. So the leaf is also croppable. So all during its growing season, its 18-month growing season, while you're waiting to crop the roots, you can crop the leaves. They're almost exactly like a cross between celery and parsley in texture and flavor. It's like that classic Apiaceae something. I don't know what it is. Like all of them, celery, parsley, coriander, fennel, they've all got this certain kind of aroma or freshness to it.
It
that
kind of cleans your palate almost when you eat it.
it does, yeah. It's a real fresh bite, and this is much the same. I have it in salads. It's a little bit strong to have a whole salad of it, but it's the kind of thing that, all my salads are kind of mosaics of all different stuff anyway, so I just throw a little bit of that in it. But it's really good for soups. It's really good for bone broths. And we make a lot of broth here, and we throw the leafy greens in to kind of extract the minerals from the greens into the broth, and then we put the bulk of the greens in the compost. When you do harvest the roots, you cut all the roots off, peel them, and essentially treat them like a potato. They are used as a potato substitute, actually.
And I was reading in your article online, and you were saying how this crop or this plant takes less inputs than potatoes to grow.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you anyone who's grown potatoes knows that it can be, not always, but it can be quite labor intensive, tilling the soil and planting the potatoes and mounding them up, this constant mounding. If you do it right with potatoes, you can get really big yields, but it is labor intensive. But with the Arracacia, assuming that it's happy enough in its environment and it's not going to have any real pest and like environmental issues, you just stick it in the ground and walk away from it, more or less.
That always feels really good when a plant will grow like that. I love it.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, it's minimum energy in for maximum return. And it certainly gives you that.
It gives you that feeling of success when it actually grows.
Yeah, and you crop it, you cut the roots off, and you're left with the crown, and you can divide the crown into however many little bits, depending on however many nodes and that you can see. But yeah, you can probably get, on a decent sized crown, you can get like a dozen at least really, really healthy pups off that. So that's how you propagate it. You are propagating on, so it is perennial, but it's you will be having to do the propagation. It's not the kind of thing like a perennial, like a tree where you stick it in the ground and that's it forever. You do have to propagate on. If you leave it in the ground for too long, like other Apiaceae, like a carrot, if you leave that in the ground and it goes to flower, the root becomes very woody. It's the same thing with this. If you leave this in the ground for longer than, a couple of seasons, the roots, they go from being kind of tender and juicy and crisp to just being woody and not much fun to chew on.
No. No, that does not sound good. So you really want to be harvesting this and then propagating it. Now, where will this plant thrive? I know you mentioned that I think you said high altitude. Is it a tropical plant, or where would it be most happy?
Well, highland tropics is a very particular kind of microclimate, a very, really interesting one. But I've seen it grow at the Permaculture Research Institute of Australia, Zaytuna Farm in the Shannon, northern New South Wales. Now, the Shannon was an interesting place because it was subtropical, but it's also very deep valleys. So in a way, it does in a way resemble a highland tropical system because you've got this tropical humidity, but you do have occasion for some cold weather because of these valleys. But it thrived there. So that was a subtropical wet summer and a cooler, drier winter. I am growing it here in Margaret River, southwestern Australia, which is your classic Mediterranean climate. Long, hot, dry summers, almost like drought-like summers, and mild, wet winters. I've put about 3 or 4 plants in, and they're all doing well. 2 of them bolted and went to seed, but have continued to grow. The whole plant didn't bolt. They just threw some seed up, and the plant's growing normally anyway around that. So they seem to be doing pretty well here. They do need to be looked after here, a little bit of extra water and probably even a bit of protection from late afternoon summer sun. But other than that, they're doing really well here. So I've got a sneaking suspicion that you can probably push the edge on the Arracacia as to where it'll grow.
And I also, reading in Bill's book and in your article, that the leaves can also be fed to animals.
Yeah, sure. Well, at the PRI, We had rabbits and goats and cows and ducks and chickens, and everything liked it. I mean, anything you can eat, leaf-wise, an animal that eats vegetation is very likely going to eat it. So we would give the older leaves and stems to the rabbits and the goats, and I think we tried the cows and they ate it, but we didn't give them a whole lot. Yeah, but they loved it, especially the rabbits. They just devoured it.
Wow, that's great. And then also it sounds like it would attract beneficial insects as well.
Yes, of course. Well, that family, the Apiaceae family, have, it seems, a relationship with lots of predatory wasps. They do attract different kind of insects, but these guys just love it. These usually what are they called? Those wasps that they're just one. They don't hive.
Parasitic? No.
Yeah, I can't remember. There's a name. It might come to me later, but at any rate,
loner wasps? No.
Yeah, we'll call them loner wasps. Yeah.
Rebellious? Right. No. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Little leather jackets, yeah. And they predate heavily on other insects. I've seen 4 or 5 varieties of little predator wasps on my umbel flowers of different types that I've never seen before, and there's many of them. So yeah, they do attract a lot of beneficial insects.
So it's really a plant with multiple uses.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been trying to find medicinal uses for it. I haven't been able to find it, but again, that family, they have pretty interesting medicinal applications.
Parsley and that makes sense.
Fennel seed.
Mm-hmm. And mineral rich, I would think too.
Yes, this one, vitamin A and calcium in particular. Vitamin A being really good for eyesight and eye function.
How much water would you say that it needs per year, or at least that you could get away with giving it?
Well, it depends where you are. I can't say equivocally what that would be. Only that being a subtropical plant and having a really, really dense, bushy, leafy, crop above ground, it's going to transpire quite a lot of water. So it would be quite thirsty. And on the other hand, anything with a big subterranean tuber, big, carbohydrate rich storage organ, so to speak, underground, too much water in the soil, and you very often get fungal issues and rotting and that kind of thing. Like anyone who's had a potato in the ground where it's been too wet for too long and they just kind of melt, that could very likely be an issue. I imagine it would. I haven't actually seen it myself, but it would be a dance between those two different issues. And this is why I would like to see more people growing it and more people commenting on what they've found.
Yeah, and I think in your article you also were talking about growing out plants that you like.
Yeah, well, establishing something of a little breeding program for them. I mean, they do go to seed. I've seen it. I've collected some seed. I'm going to attempt to germinate it. It is quite difficult to germinate it. You've got about a 50-50 strike rate. But an interesting fact is that it's believed to be a hybrid between 2 separate species. So it's only found in cultivation. It's not a wild plant at all. And being a hybrid between 2 different species, it has quite a varied and rich genetic heritage to draw upon every time it reproduces sexually. So by all accounts I've read, when you do grow it on from seed, you get quite a varying result in the different offspring. But it's the kind of thing that, this is such a great perennial staple crop that it's one of the little things that's really worth our time to investigate if you've got it and you have the means to play with it.
And do you know if this plant is available, since it is a 50-50 chance for seeds, I wonder if it's available in seed catalogs, or is it better to try and get it from a friend? Or
I've never seen it in a seed catalog. Cuttings and pups are the best way to do it.
And anything else you want to add about this interesting plant from the Andes?
I think that's about it. Oh no, that's another interesting fact. Is being gluten free. is pretty valuable. I have an issue with gluten, digesting gluten. So this is one of those staple foods, those staple carbohydrate-rich foods that you can actually make a meal out of. You can grind down and make breads and whatnot from it. But it's not just gluten-free. It has very, very, very tiny grains. So it's very easily digestible. Your body has really no issue breaking this down and digesting it. And it's perfect for baby foods. And it's perfect for the elderly or anyone with a sensitive stomach or digestion issues. And it's actually used for those things in South America.
What a plant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to The Plant Report. The Plant Report is produced by Jill Cloutier and is a project of Sustainable World Radio. For more podcasts about plants, permaculture, and ecology, visit our website, sustainableworldradio.com, and you can also find us on iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter. The Plant Report is created for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any health condition. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to thank the plants for everything they do.